Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Parallax Abstraction, and welcome to another episode of Retro Flashback, showcasing gaming's roots for a new generation. So, today we're going to be doing something a little bit different. People who've been watching this channel for a little while have probably seen my numerous videos on Capcom Arcade Cabinet, which is a recent collection of emulated older titles that you're able to purchase for the 360 and the PS3. Well, obviously that's not the only package that's come out on there in recent years, and I was at the Best Buy last week and found myself a couple of other packages for a really good price that I decided to grab, and I was like, hey, we should take a look at these as well. So what we're taking a look at today is Sonic's Ultimate Genesis Collection. This came out in 2009 for the 360 and the PS3 as a retail product, and it was developed by Backbone Entertainment, which is a Foundation 9 entertainment studio that actually I found out while researching this episode no longer exists. It looks like they were quietly disbanded sometime in the last year. But when Backbone was around, they did a number of different games, but one of their main shticks was doing emulation of older titles on modern systems. They originally did it under the name Digital Eclipse, which is sort of what they started out as, and then they continued it under the Backbone name when they got rid of the Digital Eclipse name. And they put out a bunch of different stuff of varying quality over the years. If you've played a lot of older titles from Midway, Sega, and others on Xbox Live Arcade or PlayStation Network, there's a decent chance that Backbone had something to do with it. So I picked up two different collections, and what we're going to be doing is we're not going to be doing what I did with Capcom Arcade Cabinet, which was reviewing all the games in the package. We're just going to be taking a look at the actual wrappers and sort of the package extras as a whole that they come with. Because let's be honest here, if they're asking you to shell out a decent chunk of money, you know, I think this package launched for $40. I picked it up for $20, which is what you can get it for brand new right now. But when this package launched, you know, they're asking $40+ for a bunch of old games. You know, getting the old games and having them faithfully reproduced is the most important thing, of course. But it's not unfair to expect the package to bring some extra value to the table on its own. And that's what I hope to do here, is to showcase whether or not this package as a whole is worth your consideration. So, let's dive in here. I played a little bit of this package so far, but not a ton. So we're going to go over the various different features that this offers here. So, first thing is, even when this launched, the amount of games you got for your money was pretty darn impressive. And for $20, this is frankly astonishing. So there are no less than 40 different Genesis games in this package, in addition to a number of arcade and a couple of Sega Master System titles that you can also unlock by completing certain objectives. So let's quickly run down the list here. So we have Alex Kidd, Alien Storm, Altered Beast, Beyond Oasis, Bonanza Brothers, Columns, Comic Zone, Decap Attack, Dr. Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine, they just shows MBM there, Dynamite Heady, E-SWAT, Echo the Dolphin, Echo the Tides of Time, which was its sequel, Fatal Labyrinth, Flicky, Gain Ground, Golden Axe 1, 2, and 3, Kid Chameleon, Phantasy Star 2, 3, and 4, Rystar, Shining Force 1 and 2, Shining in the Darkness, Shinobi 3, Sonic & Knuckles, Sonic 3D Blast, Sonic Spinball, Sonic the Hedgehog 1, 2, and 3. It's called Sonic's Ultimate Genesis Collection for a reason, folks. Streets of Rage 1, 2, and 3, Super Thunderblade, Vector Man 1 and 2, and you can also unlock the arcade versions of Alien Syndrome, Altered Beast, Congo Bongo, Fantasy Zone, Golden Axe Warrior, sorry, that's a Master System game, Shinobi, Space Harrier, and Zaxxon, and yes, Golden Axe Warrior, which is a Master System game, and also the original Phantasy Star, which is a Sega Master System game. Good lord. That is a lot of games, folks, and there are arguably some of the best Genesis games ever in this pack. It's damn impressive, man. There is some really good stuff in here, and I'm happy to say that I have not played every game in this package, and I haven't even played all of them in their original forms, necessarily, but I played several of the games in here that I do remember from the old days, and I'm happy to say that Backbone has done an exquisite job of the emulation in this package. Backbone's history with emulation stuff is not 100% positive. They do have some titles that had problems. Most of them were problems that you'd have to be kind of a retro snob like myself to really notice. But they were nonetheless there, and these seem to be bang on accurate, which good on them. That's really good. If you're going to do it right, you know? So that's very impressive. So a lot of these games have been available in other forms. Some of them were on Xbox Live Arcade or PlayStation Network. A good chunk of them have been on the Wii Virtual Console service as well. That's where I covered some of these originally. So, but the thing with a lot of those games is in many cases they sold with just those games on their own for $5 to $10 each. So in this case, you know, at least as it stands right now, you're getting, you know, over 45 games in total for $20. That's a pretty big delta there in terms of value for money, right? So it's pretty excellent. I am impressed with that, and on that alone, this may very well be worth your time. But obviously, what we're also here to talk about is what the differences are that this brings to the table. So we're going to fire up Altered Beast here, and I'll show you that. Now, this is a pretty god-awful game that I did cover on a previous episode. I actually covered it through the Wii Virtual Console. And I'm bringing this up here so that I can show you both that the emulation is accurately reproduced. If you want to compare it, then you can go back and look at that episode if you want. This did have, the Wii version was a very faithful reproduction, so that's an easy way to compare for yourself. But personally, I think this is excellent. So one thing that I think is a nice little touch is if you play this with all the standard video settings, every game gets its own little unique background art. So you see this is actually an Altered Beast themed background art that this has. Every game has a different one. You can't customize this or alter this as far as I know, so that's a little limitation, but most of them are pretty nice, so that's kind of cool. But I say the default background options, and what do I mean by that? Well, alright, so here's where things get a little bit interesting. So one of the things I gave Capcom Arcade Cabinet a huge amount of credit for, or rather its developer, which was M2, is that they put a frankly ridiculous amount of customization options in that. Stuff that frankly no sane person would ever use. You know, you could stretch the window out to all kinds of crazy dimensions. You can make it like the size of a postage stamp and play that way if you wanted. You could alter the EQ on the sound mix. You could do all this ridiculous stuff. And it was the kind of thing that, like I said, no one would ever really use. But I was like, you know what? Good on these guys for going the extra mile and doing all this extra stuff and basically saying, hey, we're asking for a pile of your money for old games. We're going to throw everything plus the kitchen sink in here just because. Just to make you feel like we've done everything possible to give you something cool. Backbone definitely didn't go as far as that with this, but they've hit a lot of the most important notes. So, what do I mean by that? Well, first off, let's go into the control settings. Keys in all these games are fully rebindable, which is excellent. I find that by default, the sort of default settings that we have here for an Xbox 360 controller are perfectly fine. But you can change stuff around if you want. You can completely manually rebind everything if you want. So it will list off whatever relevant controls to each game you're playing here, and it will show you what's assigned and what's not assigned. You can easily change all that around if you want. So you see here, you can even bind multiple buttons to multiple individual controls if you want. Pretty cool. I do find it a little. I do find it a little weird that there's no like revert to defaults option, which is a little strange. This obviously won't save because I'm going to hit cancel, so I guess that's an easy way to undo it, but it would be nice if there was just an option to go, hey, go defaults. There's also a rapid fire option, which is always very cool. If you want to... It's a bit of a way to play these games a little bit more casually, I guess. In some games, it would actually probably be a bit of a hindrance. I can't really see this being all that helpful in a game like Altered Beast, but in some of the shmup titles or the brawlers or something, it could be useful. So it's nice that you can turn that on and off anyway. So, the video stuff. Now, this is where things in Capcom Arcade Cabinet went really, really crazy. And it's certainly not as advanced here, but it does the most important stuff. So, these games, when they came out, were obviously all 4x3. There was no such thing as widescreen televisions back in the late 80s, early 90s. So that's how they display by default. But if you would rather not have the borders and you would like this to fill your nice big screen, all you got to do is hit your left bumper, and there it is. So now we are in full screen. However, this does not really scale all that well. So you're probably noticing here that everything looks just a little bit stretched out. And yet, true enough, that is the case. And yeah, it's kind of too bad that it doesn't scale better. I mean, it actually is not bad, at least in this game. It doesn't look all that horrible, but, and it's certainly more than playable this way. To me, having the artwork in the background is not really a big deal to me because I'm a purist, obviously, and I prefer to play any older title in the way in which it was originally presented. So this gives me that, but you have the option anyway. So if you would rather it fill your screen, hey, nothing wrong with that, and you can totally do that. That's very cool. I like that. You can also do some manual adjustment, a la Capcom Arcade Cabinet as well. I know I keep making a lot of references to that. That's just because it's what I most recently talked about. As you can see, it is not nearly as robust, but it's there in all the ways that matter. Like the ability to stretch the screen out so big that you can't make anything out is pointless, and there's no reason to do that. So sure, they don't have it, but I'm not really going to fault them for that. Really, the thing is, though, is you can't adjust it very much. So really, all this is really good for is if you have a TV with poor overscan. Now, I actually have an old, it's almost 7 years old now, LG plasma TV that does have overscan problems, but not on the 360. It only does on the PS3. So for me, the defaults, which you can actually set here, oddly you can't with the controls, but you can with the screen settings. This with the defaults looks tickety-boo for me. If I was playing on the PS3, it might not be so good, and I might have to do some adjustments. So it's nice that that's there anyway. So here's the big bugbear for a lot of people. A lot of these emulation packages have what's called smoothing. And what smoothing is supposed to do is crisp up the graphics a little bit and make them, actually decrisps them really. It's supposed to make everything look, well, smoother. It's supposed to smooth out jagged edges, and in theory, it's supposed to make the games look better. Every emulation author has their own kind of ways they like to do smoothing, and some do it better than others. In this one, it kind of depends on the game, but if you take a look in the background here, so don't look at the menu, look at the area around it, especially that wall on the left there. So smoothing is off now. This is the way the game originally looked. There it is when it's turned on. It still kind of looks okay, but you notice how everything kind of starts to look muddier and blended together? Almost like it's like a 3D texture that's sort of poorly done. That's what I'm talking about. It's really not... I don't know. In other games that don't have such pronounced sharp edges, it might actually look better. But... I don't know. In my case, at least with Altered Beast, I think it makes it look notably worse. It looks a lot muddier. It almost looks blurry, to be honest, when smoothing's turned on. So, I don't know. That's down to your personal preference. I would probably not recommend it in most games, to be honest with you. But, you know, yeah, it's kind of cool, and it's nice that it's there. And as best as I can tell, these video options are actually saved on a per-game basis. So if you like smoothing in one game and don't like it in another game, you can set it that way and you won't have to constantly switch it. It'll remember it based on the game you're playing. I like that. That is very, very cool of them. So that's nice. In addition to that, the video options, you also have the ability to actually save games and resume them. These are basically save states. So, for example, on the Wii Virtual Console, at any point you can exit out of a Wii Virtual Console game and it will remember where you were and resume that when you come back. On the Wii U Virtual Console, you can manually create those save state points. That's exactly what this is. And it works pretty well. You save your game and play for a little bit here. So this boss came on the screen. So if I screwed something up or I was trying to get a really nice run going or whatever, I can just say load. Takes me right back to where I was. That's cool. And, you know, yeah, this kind of games the system a little bit, if you want to call it that, because these games weren't designed to be played that way, but This is an emulation package. It's designed to allow you to appreciate the old games in whatever way you see fit. So once again, if people think that's cheating, you don't have to use it. It being there does not require people to make use of it. And of course, there's a very simple way to just reset the game if you want. So as you can see there, as it's prompting, any game that has a 2-player option available, the second player can pick up a controller and just jump in at any time. One thing is this package has no online play whatsoever. So if you want to play any of these games with a second player, you got to do it on the same console. That is a major deficiency compared to some other packages that are out there, including, once again, Capcom Arcade Cabinet. M2 actually managed to write a framework to put online play into those games, and to be honest with you, I'm a little surprised that this doesn't have it, because other Backbone collections, including some like Smash TV that came out when the 360 launched, had online play options in them. I don't know why this one doesn't. Maybe it was just too difficult to write that into the catalog of games they had and make it work. And, you know, is that going to be a big deal to a lot of people? Maybe not. You know, having online play with these collections is always nice, but a lot of people probably never really used it. So, and that's not how any of these games worked originally, right? These systems didn't have online play. So that may not matter to you, but just know that that is not there, and there are cheaper emulation options out there that do have it. So that's kind of a bit of a thing. So we have all that. Those are the in-game options. One of the other things that you can do on this menu that's kind of weird but also nice is you see with this little meter thing here. So this is what's called rating it as a favorite. This is almost like something like, you know how in something like iTunes you can give like songs like a star rating for how much you like them, and in theory those songs get played more often? I guess that's the idea with this. So you can actually go through and rate these titles by how much you like them. By default they all get 3 blips or whatever, stars, let's call them stars. And then what you can do is you can actually sort the menu by different criteria, and one of which is your favorites. And depending on how you order these things, it will display them sort of by how you've got them sorted out. Yeah, I guess that's kind of neat. I don't know. I don't really know how important that is, but you may like that. And it's kind of a neat way, I guess, to show that only the stuff you like is at the top, or in particular that the stuff you really don't like is buried. So you can sort this either alphabetically by the year they came out, which it does show you on the right side there, which is kind of cool. By the genre. This is nice that it breaks everything down by genre. So some of the genres are weird, like Super Thunderblade, not really a sim. It's kind of more of a shmup, to be honest with you. And like Other is not particularly helpful, and there's a lot of others. Like, what is Other? Like, that's a little weird. But some of them are helpful, you know, platformer, brawler, etc., etc. That stuff's kind of nice, I guess. So you can sort them that way, which is kind of neat. And here's the thing that I really like the most. One place where Capcom Arcade Cabinet really badly fell down was in describing the history of all the different games. I think this is really important. If you're someone who's playing this stuff to learn about it and to learn why it was cool, I think giving a good explanation of the history of a title and its story and other things like that is very important. They did a lousy job of that in Capcom Arcade Cabinet. In this game, everything gets a pretty nice little, what they call museum section. And when you're in here, you can leap around to all the different games. And some of this is just, you know, a good chunk of this is just a description of the game, almost like a sell sheet. But there's also a whole bunch of different little factoids and stuff like that about the game. I would definitely have liked to have seen more stuff in here about, say, you know, talking about the creators and some of the, you know, the impetus behind these games and some of their design history and that. That's probably a little hard to do because, admittedly, a lot of the people who've made these games have long since moved on, many of which are no longer at Sega, so, I mean, getting a hold of that stuff would have probably been brutal. But it would have been nice to have seen a little more here, but it's neat that you get all this stuff anyway. And as you can see, you can also see some art of it, which is usually just the box and the cartridge layout and that. But it's cool. I like that this stuff is in here. And you know what? This is a better job than they did with Capcom Arcade Cabinet on that. So good on them for that. And you can see here there's an art view that allows you to do things like zoom and move around and stuff like that. That's kind of pointless, but it's neat. The zoom function's nice to get some more detail, and they're fairly high-res scans, so I like that too. So that's kind of cool. So here are the extras. Now, these are things that you get from unlocking certain conditions in a lot of the games. Some of these are based off of the same conditions that win you achievements. There are, for people who are big into achievements, not every game in this collection has an achievement associated with it. Well, the RPGs in particular, because they're all extremely long. But most of these have achievements. Some of them are easy, a few of them are not. But completing those often completes a lot of other conditions that will unlock these other things. But as you can see here, it's all laid out for you as well. So I've unlocked a few things by playing around with this, like Shinobi Arcade, for example, the original Space Harrier. So, but you can see by going over these here, it shows you all the various conditions that you need in order to unlock these. And some of these are not too bad. What I really love is, yeah, there's video interviews in here, which is really, really cool. So they're not exactly high quality. I think a lot of this stuff was probably, some of this is probably old archive interviews that were either came off a VCR or a very low-end camcorder or something like that. They don't say what the age is on these, but nonetheless it's there, and you've got these, so you've got these interviews with some of the original creators of these titles talking about what they did, and I think that is really, really cool. You often don't see a lot of that stuff, and this is where they kind of make up for the fact that the museum pages don't necessarily go into the level of history that you would like. This shows some more detail and real insight into the creators' minds, and I love that. I think that's, you know, as a bit of a video game history buff, I find this stuff incredibly fascinating. So I think that's really cool. And yeah, all this stuff is here. To be honest, the majority of these conditions, from what I've read, are not that bad. So some of them are harder than others, but there's nothing that will require hours and hours of grinding to get through here, which I really respect a lot. So I think that's pretty cool. And yeah, I mean, the variety in this game is just incredible. Like, there's multiple Phantasy Star games in here. Like, I never played those games, but I know some people have some incredible fondness for those, and those are big-ass RPGs. Like, you could spend a lot of time in some of these games. It's really impressive, the sheer depth of content that you get in here. And I think that's really cool. And the thing was, like, back in the day, I never owned a Genesis. A friend of mine owned a Genesis. I owned an NES until really late in its life, and then I moved over to a Super NES. But I loved a lot of Genesis games, and I played a lot of these, and there are a bunch of others I never got the chance to that I would like to. And you got all that here in spades. And I think that's really excellent. You know, there are some titles in here that I really, really like some of my favorite shooters are in this. Some of my favorite shmups are in it. I mean, the Streets of Rage series, which are some of the best brawlers ever made, are in here. And, you know, there are other places to get them for sure. You know, you can get Streets of Rage on the Virtual Console. You can get it on Xbox Live Arcade. But this doesn't cost a lot more than just those packages do, and you get a hell of a lot more with it. So it's pretty impressive. I'm really, I generally like this package. I think they could have done a bit better a job on the menus and the presentation in general. I still think that they didn't go into nearly enough detail when describing the games themselves, but you have a huge variety of titles in here. They're all, as best as I can tell, emulated very, very well, including some of the weird ones like, you know, Sonic Spinball, which is a Sonic the Hedgehog-themed pinball game, for God's sake. You know, just some of the weirder, you know, eccentricities of the Genesis era, I guess, of which there were many, are in here as well, and I think that's really, really excellent. This is such a weird game. And yeah, so like I said, I want to finish So I want to finish Capcom Arcade Cabinet because I committed to do that. I'm not going to do long series on these emulation packages because I know people aren't really into that. But when I want to review or talk about any of the games that are available in these collections, this is probably how I'll do them, because it's a really good way to do it. And I think it's pretty impressive. I mean, I never bought this package when it was new, but if I did, I don't think I would have felt that I wasn't getting good value for money. And honestly, you can buy this brand new right now. If you look around a little bit, you can probably get it used for less than that. And if you're into retro stuff and Genesis stuff in particular, I think that's a no-brainer. It is an incredible amount of really good quality Genesis titles, and a few others for that matter. And they're emulated well, and they come with a wrapper that could be better, but could also be a lot worse, and I have seen a lot worse. The one place I think this does really fall down is the lack of online play. I know there are probably technical reasons why that would have been hard to do, but other packages did it, and I think that's a bit of a failure, because I think the ability to play this with people who are not necessarily in the same room with you, I think makes things a lot more interesting. Obviously, as well, because there's no Xbox Live play, there are also no online leaderboards. Again, another major failing, and another thing that is present in all their Xbox Live Arcade releases and some other retail packages as well. Yeah, those are two major failings, but at the end of the day, it doesn't make a huge difference. You know, online leaderboards never matter that much to me because I'm never good enough at these games to place anywhere of real consequence to them, so meh, what are you going to do, right? So I think this is really good, and yeah, if you like the Genesis, I think you should pick it up. So that is Sonic's Ultimate Genesis Collection, developed by Backbone Entertainment, may they rest in peace, I guess, and published by Sega in 2009 for the Xbox 360 and the PlayStation 3. I picked up the Xbox 360 Platinum Hits release of this for $20, brand new, and I'm sure you'd have no trouble finding it. It's still on sale right now, and it's generally a good package overall. My name has been Parallax Abstraction. Thank you all very much for watching, and I will see you next time.